I don't see it yet. Can anybody see? Let's see.
See what?
I'm trying to see if it's broadcasting yet.
On YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It says here live on YouTube.
Got it. Okay, I'm going live now. All right.
Good evening, good afternoon, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from. Welcome to EPR's Professional Women's Monthly Webinar. We are excited to have you with us today. My name is Oni Bayode, and our topic today is effective virtual communication. We're especially excited because today's webinar is in partnership with EPR's Leadership Institute, and we're really excited to have one of our own in tonight's session. I hope you are excited as we are. Just as way of introduction for those who don't know who EPR or what we are about, EPR Women's Professional Network is a platform where today's professional Christian woman can access the tools and resources to deploy her gifts and talents in the marketplace. Our purpose is to build up and empower women to achieve the best in their personal and professional lives. Please sit down, relax, grab a pen, grab a notebook, mute yourselves, grab something to drink, and please just concentrate. Don't try and multitask now, because you're going to get some useful tips that I actually believe will change your life. It could set you apart in the workplace, in your business, wherever you might find yourself. These hints and tips will really change you. So please try and focus. I know as women, we might want to multitask, but you want to invest your time for the next hour. You really want to make sure you do it. I'm really excited. We have one of our own, Frida Raymond Obi. Frida is the founder and curator of Show Me What to Do Limited, a business education firm aimed at sharing valuable knowledge to help people succeed in business and win in life. She was, until March 2020, the administrator for the Ubon King Foundation. And before then, she had worked in various multinational organizations over the span of 25 years, including British Airways, Swissport UK, Prime Care UK, as well as a certified action coach, business coach in the UK. Frida holds an MBA in international business from the University of Birmingham, where she also had a short stint as a part-time lecturer in leadership. She holds a BSc in food science and technology from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, as well as several other certifications in areas such as database and business analysis, training, design, and delivery, just to mention a few. She is passionate about excellence in all spheres of life and seeks to give people the knowledge and practical tools they require to succeed in business and life. She's an avid reader and personal development advocate, as well as an accomplished business strategist, trainer, and coach. She's married with 2 amazing children. Please follow her on Instagram, Show Me What to Do, at Show Me What to Do. Like her Facebook page, Show Me What to Do, and connect with her on LinkedIn, Raymond Obi. F Raymond Obi, rather, F Raymond Obi. It's really a thrill to have Frida with us. And I mean, to be able to get all her years of experience within this 1 hour, we're ready to suck you dry, Frida, with all your insights. Welcome to Frida.
Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's an honor, it's a privilege to be here today. I was laughing as Onye was introducing me. I was like, oh my goodness, my age is showing now. Over 25 years working, and that doesn't even include some of the years I worked before I joined British Airways, but it's all good. So welcome once again. And just to just quickly go into what we are here for today. because I know that, time is of the essence, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. So I'm just going to go straight into it and start with the introduction and talk about communication. I'm sure we all know that communication is an integral part of our lives. It's the lifeblood of any relationship. If you look at any relationship that is going on strong, one thing you will notice is that their communication is very strong. And if you look at any communication, relationship that is breaking down, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship, you find out that communication is a key factor as well. And in simple terms, communication is just simply the exchange of ideas, thoughts, and information from one person to the other. And it can be done in various ways. There's the verbal, which I'm using now via a spoken language. I'm speaking English right now. And then there's the non-verbal, which you can use, things like, if I do this, this is almost universal when you give a thumbs up and so on. So body language, facial expressions, movements and so on. And then there's the written, obviously, written language, symbols and numbers. And then there's visual, which is becoming very popular right now. Photography, art, drawings, sketches, charts and graphs with the advent of the internet. Okay, so let's talk about virtual communication. So virtual communication is a mode of communication that includes the use of technology, audio and video, to communicate with people who are not physically present. So this is it. Any communication that you have with somebody who's not physically present with you in that same location is virtual communication. And it started way back with the invention of the telephone. So telephone is also a form of virtual communication, because with telephone, you can be right. I'm right here in Lagos, Nigeria, and somebody, I could place a telephone call to somebody all the way in India, and the person is not physically in the same room or in the same location with me. So that's virtual communication. So we have emails, we have webcams, we have video conferencing, social media, which is very, very popular right now. We have instant messaging apps such as WhatsApp, and then we have project management tools. And I'll be talking a bit more about all of this as we go on today. And I'm sure that you've all noticed how virtual communication has opened up vast opportunities to build business and other networks from the home space, especially with the advent of COVID-19. 2020 threw the whole world into a loop. Like, people had to, the word pivot became a household name. A household phrase that people were using, and everybody were looking for ways to now start to do things online. And because of that, we were all propelled into the world of virtual communication. And it became apparent that as leaders, we want to learn and we want to grow to be more effective in this mode of communication, because guess what? It's the way forward, and I'm talking a bit more about that. Obviously, it will impact on our productivity in all areas of our lives. Even our children had to suddenly learn how to, communicate online at the advent of COVID. All right. So having talked about that, just to test, in the chats, can you let me know, prior to the pandemic, how did you use Zoom? So A, I had never used Zoom before the pandemic. B, I'd used it only a couple of times. And C, I was a power user. So just type your responses in the chat box for me. Let me see. Okay, I have Oni. She says she'd used it only a couple of times. Okay, I have Kemi who says she was a power user. Wow, fantastic. Oh, I have Kemi Ashibu, who says she had never used Zoom prior to the pandemic. Interesting. All right. Let's move on. And now that you've used Zoom, please go back on me. Thank you. Where would you like to work? Now that you have been thrust into this virtual environment, would you prefer to still keep going to work on a 9-to-5 job? Would you prefer to work from home? Or would you like a hybrid work where you go into the office a few days of the week, and then the rest of the week you are working from home? Let's have your answers in the chat box as well. Anya says she prefers to work from home. Wow, interesting. So that's 100% from home, Anya. Wow. Personally, I'd like to do the hybrid. Okay, Kemi says hybrid. Okay, from home, hybrid. Anya says no need for makeup and heels when she works from home. All right, people like to go into the office once in a while. All right, so let's move on. And just to give you a few statistics of how quickly things changed because of COVID. 46%. So Microsoft were the ones that did this survey. They did a survey where they surveyed, and they got responses from over 30,000 people in 31 different countries. And it was a survey that had to do with the future of work and what the work trend will be in the future. And they found out that 46% of people are planning to move from where they are living currently because they can now work remotely. So physical work obviously is making people live in places that they would prefer not to live in. And now that they found that they can work remotely, they are planning to move to where they actually really want to work from. Interesting. 46%. Remote job postings on LinkedIn increased over 5 times since the pandemic. So there are more job postings on LinkedIn, 5 times more job postings on LinkedIn than before the pandemic. So if you're looking for a job, that's a big hint there. Go to LinkedIn, join LinkedIn and source for a job from there. And 40.6 billion more emails were delivered in February 2021 versus February. Wow, that's a whole load of emails, 40.6 billion emails. People are really writing. Obviously, email just took off because of the pandemic. And on Microsoft Teams, weekly meetings increased, weekly meeting time increased. That's more than double, 148% since February 2021. Now, this is what Microsoft has said. The next great disruption is hybrid work. My question to you today is, are you ready? Are you really, really ready? Let's put this in a bit of perspective. I love to watch sci-fi movies. And there's something I always tell my children, that when you watch sci-fi movies, it's a very good indicator of what's coming in the future. And I remember that when I was very little, we used to watch this sci-fi series called Space 1999. And back then, and even Star Trek, and back then they used to communicate via their wristwatches. And this was a time when they hadn't even created mobile phones. They had not discovered mobile phones or created mobile phones. And already they were saying that they were communicating through their wristwatch. Well, we all know that there are smartwatches today that we communicate with. And so when you watch things like like the Marvel series, for instance, and you're watching Infinity War and you're watching Endgames, and you are seeing them communicating with holographs. So I hope you know what a holograph is. If you remember, I mean, they're not there. Somebody is in a different planet, but you can see a holograph of the person, and you're talking to the person as if the person is in front of you and face to face. That is the future. And we're not there yet. So you can imagine what work will look like then, which means that whatever changes are going on right now, you need to get on top of them for you to continue to be relevant in your workplace. And I dare say, even with other aspects of life. So moving on, I'm going to talk about some of the advantages of virtual communication. It's really fast. So now more than ever, it's easier to stay in contact and stay in touch with your colleagues and your friends. I mean, my children are in a different country from me. I'm here in Lagos, Nigeria. My children are both in the United States, but we talk every single day. And sometimes we will do it via chat, WhatsApp, and sometimes we would do it via WhatsApp video calls, but we talk every day. It's so fast. So it's just the fact that they're not physically here, but we're so in contact. And I mean, it's fast, it's cost effective. So a lot of, in the past, when you wanted to have a meeting, somebody would have to travel, would have to be lodged in a hotel. There would be parking, there would be meal expenses, there would be contingencies, there would be all of that. But a lot of that now has been scrapped away because of virtual communication. Let me tell you an interesting thing. When the lockdown started, I went to a supermarket and I overheard two people laughing and discussing and talking about how, because they were now working remotely from home, the office found out that their costs had greatly reduced. And the funny thing was that this office was the one that they provided all of their staff with modems and were paying them monthly internet, they're paying their monthly internet bills and all of that. And their costs, they saved millions by just doing that. So already the two people that were discussing knew that even if we all came out of lockdown and things went back to normal, they knew that they would not be required to keep going into the office every day. Really cost effective. And then most messages are encrypted, which means there's a minimal abuse of information and you can send your information across securely. So having talked about the advantages now, let's take a look at some of the top challenges, because if you can mitigate against these challenges, then you will be able to communicate virtually with excellence. And one of the first ones is different time zones. So, you know, when we started this meeting, we started with, oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Yes, because while some people are waking up, others are in the middle of their day, and some are retiring for the night, and others are asleep. So, I mean, that's one of the top challenges of virtual communication. The other one is technological capabilities. It differs across countries. I mean, there's some countries, even here in Lagos, Nigeria, where I am, we shout a lot about our internet collections and so on and so forth. And sometimes even with the first world countries, sometimes things just fail for no reason. I remember I was chatting with my daughter yesterday, and the next thing she told me, she said, oh, my internet is crap. And I'm like, you're in the US, how can your internet be crap? And she said, oh, she thinks it's because she's in the basement. So, I mean, you never know. And then another top challenge is with body language. Okay. So remember how I said that virtual communication is any communication where the person is not physically with you in the same room or in the same vicinity. And usually you are using technology to communicate. Now, the thing is that it's easier to read people and to read nuances when somebody is face to face with you than, and when you can see the whole body, not just the face, because sometimes the person's body posture might be saying a different thing from what their face is saying. So when you see the whole body, you're able to read the body language and to really understand the nuances behind what they're saying. And the statistics for face-to-face, so this is for face-to-face communication. I mean, two of us are in the same room, we're physically together and we're talking. Is that 7% of the communication is in the words we use, 38% is in the tone of voice, and 55% is in the body language. Obviously, these percentages change when it's no longer face-to-face. So for instance, if it was telephone, you're not seeing the person at all. So body language becomes the lowest. And tone of voice and the words you use take on a higher percentages. Same thing. So for instance, if I was sending you an email, obviously with email, they say that there's a tone to email, but you can't actually really hear the person speaking. So if the person puts, if I said something like, oh, don't be silly, and I say, come on, don't be silly. You see, if I wrote it in an email, you probably wouldn't know what tone of voice I used, unless I probably put an emoji or something to qualify it. So body language, the fact that you cannot, decipher the body language of the person speaking is also a top challenge. And then distraction. So you can imagine, as I'm speaking now, if there are people behind me carrying things, there's somebody beside me making noise, I have my baby, I have a pet that suddenly jumps onto the laptop, and so on. So distractions are another top challenge. And then a feeling of isolation. Buffer conducted another research, and they found out that 19% of people who were working remotely felt lonely. That was their top challenge, the feeling of loneliness, because we're human beings, we all crave connection and we all crave physical touch, And so when they are in isolation like that, most of their conversation becomes work related, and it usually spills over to affecting their performance and then reducing their productivity. Wow. So how do we mitigate against these challenges, and how do we improve our virtual communication? I always say that if you know how something works, then you know what you can do to make it better, or you know what you can do to improve upon it. And the first thing to remember is that communication is always about building relationships, whether that's formal relationships or informal relationships, whether that's a personal relationship or a business relationship. And it's to accomplish a desired objective or goal. So let's have that in mind at all times. So for example, for me, I'm communicating with you today because the goal and the objective is to help you become excellent virtual communicators. And I can't do that if you don't warm up to me or I warm up to you. So communication is about how much you can connect with the people that you're communicating with, or the person you're communicating with. And so there's this basic communication model that we always use when we're teaching this. And so communication always starts with a sender who has a message that they want to give to a receiver. So in this case, let's say I'm the sender, and my message is how you can improve upon your virtual communication or effective communication. And then you are the receiver, right? So as the sender, encoding simply means I'm going to put my message in a form that I'm going to put it in a form that a particular channel will take it and deliver it to the receiver in a way that the receiver can decode it. So let me become practical now. I want to send a message to Onye, for instance. And I'm like, oh, I want to ask Onye, what time is the webinar? So I encode it into language, into text, into written word. I can encode it into written word. I can encode it by making a phone call to speak to her face to face. So I can send her a WhatsApp message. So WhatsApp is the channel. If I use the telephone is the channel, you know. So I can encode it in that way. And Onye has to be able to decode the message I've sent. So there are still people who are not on WhatsApp. So if you want to send them a message, using WhatsApp just will not cut it. That's a wrong channel to use. There are people who still, in some countries, who don't have a telephone. They don't have a mobile. So you can't place a call. You have to look for a different way to send a message to them, a different channel. So I'm just explaining all of that. Now, communication is only complete if the receiver receives the message in the way that the sender intended. Let me say it again. Communication is only complete if the receiver, when the receiver receives the message the way the sender intended. And for that to happen, there has to be feedback. So the receiver has to be able to respond back to the sender their understanding of the message. If they have understood it the way the sender intended, fine, communication is complete, it's fantastic. If they have not understood it the way the sender intended, then the sender will encode a clarifying message back to the receiver for the receiver to decode. Noise comes when there's anything that is blocking either the receiver from receiving the message, or let's say it's not a proper channel that is using, then the receiver will not be able to receive the message the way the sender intended. Another thing that causes noise is if there is bias, and usually bias at the receiver's end. So you know how it is. You think your boss doesn't like you, and then your boss comes and says, oh, I'd like you to work on this report. And then because you think your boss doesn't like you, you think, why am I the one that he says should work on the report? It's because he doesn't like me. Whereas he's probably giving work to other people in the team, and you're the only one left that he hasn't given anything. But because you are biased, you received that message in the wrong way. So feedback and communication can solve that. Obviously, in some clients, you can actually walk up to your boss and tell your boss, I don't know why, I just feel that you have something against me, in some clients. But in other clients, there are ways that you will communicate and you will sort this kind of bias problem out. Okay, let me see a yes, 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 or no, 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 if you are following in the chats. It'll help me to know that I am delivering. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully you're gaining something today. Okay, I see a yes. Okay, okay, all right, fantastic. I just need to say one thing though. If you have any questions, because I'll be taking questions at the end, put them in the chat and then I'll take them at the end. So if you have any questions as we go along, just put them in the chats. and I'll take them as we go along. Also, there is actually a companion workbook that goes with this webinar. There's a companion workbook, and it will really help you, because what I've done is I've added links to videos that will help you to practically to put these things into practice, that will help you to put these all these things I'm teaching into practice. Okay, so having said that, and having looked at that communication model now, let's look at some of the virtual skills that you need. These are just some, not all, but these are the ones that I put 10 really key skills that you need to look at that will help you to communicate virtually with excellence. And of course, the first one is technological capabilities. Virtual communication always includes some form of technology. You have to learn how to use the email systems. You have to learn how to use your phone. You have to learn how to use WhatsApp. You have to learn how to use social media. You have to learn how to use Zoom like we're using. And I guess today, because we're using Zoom, a lot of my examples will be using Zoom. Now, people are moving on to project management software. You have to learn, especially if you're in a global team, you start learning to use things like Asana. You start learning to use things like Microsoft Teams. I know that in EPR, we're into Microsoft Teams at the moment, you know, and so on. Another key one is emotional intelligence. Everybody's learning. Everybody was pushed into this virtual world in 2020. Some people had to be dragged in. People who don't like that, they're technophobes, people who don't like technology. But unfortunately, with COVID, a lot of them had to be dragged into the COVID whatever. And then there are people who find it difficult to learn things that have to do with technology. They might be brilliant at something else or whatever they do, but they just, you know, struggle with going around systems and technology and all of that. One of the things with emotional intelligence is that you become aware of other people, you become aware of yourself, and you are more forgiving to people who are struggling. Then, so emotional intelligence is a key skill that you need to become excellent at virtual communication. Facilitation. You can see how I'm doing. I sometimes I would say, oh, please type in the chat this, please, you need to be able to facilitate meetings. You need to be able to facilitate webinars. You need to be able to facilitate, even if you are using WhatsApp or you are using email or you're using project management software, for instance, you have to have facilitation skills, conflict management, even with face-to-face. So this is the thing. All of this is also important with face-to-face communication. But it becomes even more important because of the virtual environment that we're in. So even with face-to-face communication, there's usually conflict. And it becomes worse because there's now a layer between you and whoever you're communicating with. So conflict will rise, but you need to know how to manage it. And then diversity and inclusion. The world is now global. And you have to understand that what is normal for you may not be normal in another culture. So I guess a lot of emotional intelligence comes in here as well. And you have to make room for what other people believe and what other people's norms and culture, you know, is or are. You have to make room for that. There's diversity and inclusion everywhere. And it's interesting because in EPR, we actually had, the Leadership Institute actually had a training on diversity and inclusion. So that's just a cue for me to tell you that, to invite you to join EPR, because we run these trainings. And if you had to go outside, and they are free for the volunteer force or the leadership team. And if you had to go out and pay for some of these trainings, they charge thousands and thousands of pounds to run these trainings. We also had a giving and receiving feedback training that was very explosive. That one was really explosive in EPR. And yes, remember the communications model. Remember that feedback is really key to that. So you have to understand and know how to give feedback and how to receive feedback and what to do with feedback when you've received it. And for you to even be able to do that, you need to be able to listen properly, active listening. And then remember that communication is always about a goal or an objective. So that's where big picture thinking comes in, so that you understand what exactly it is that you need to communicate, how you need to communicate it, so that the receiver will receive it the way you intended. And obviously, writing skills, especially if you're going to be using emails, and then speaking and presenting skills if you are going to be running virtual meetings like this, like web conference, video conferencing meetings, and so on. All right, let's move on. And so let me just talk about some of these virtual skills that I've talked about, some of the ways you can put them into practice. Get personal. Use your experience, tell stories. So I've told some stories here already today. I've talked about how I communicate with my children. I've talked about the people I met in the supermarket that were talking about the fact that they know that they are not going back to the office. No more physical office work for them. In fact, the office, they were saying that at that time, the management was looking for a smaller space because they didn't need to pay the large rent they were paying because everybody didn't need to come into work, you know. So get personal, tell stories, you know, you have to learn how to do that because in emotional intelligence, there's social awareness and you have to be social skills. You have to have social skills. Be professional and be prepared. Define and communicate which channel is used. So if you're working in a team and you're going to have a meeting, let them know where you're having the meeting. Are you having the meeting on WhatsApp? Are you having it on Zoom? Are you having it on your internal office intranet or internal office systems? Are you, you know, there are so many different ways you can have a meeting. Are you going to be communicating on Microsoft Teams? Are you going to be communicating through Asana? Are you going to be, you know, so if you're managing a team, for instance, or you're working in a team, always define and communicate which channel. Because remember what I said, if you want to communicate with someone that does not have access to the channel you're communicating with, that's total and absolute communication breakdown, you know. And then test your equipment far in advance. I will tell you that before we did this meeting, we've tested everything here today. And be properly dressed. I don't think I need to say much about that because I know that when we advertise this on social media, we talked about the guy who was in a meeting and you could see him in his shirt and then he forgot his camera was on and he stood up and he was wearing his boxer shorts and everybody in his office saw him in his undies and so on. So be properly dressed. All right, be respectful, show up on time. If you're running late, inform your team, inform your audience. That's emotional intelligence as well. And looking out for other people, being respectful. Focus and be present. And of course, I talked about using your active listening skills. And Onye, I was laughing when Onye was saying this at the beginning, at the introduction, when she was saying, we're women and we have a tendency to want to multitask. Please avoid multitasking. If you are in a meeting, avoid multitasking. Avoid looking at your phone. Avoid taking phone calls. It's so disrespectful to the other people in that meeting with you. If you're going to be in a meeting, then be present, be focused. Stay in that meeting. Personally, I don't take my phone into a meeting. If I'm going into a meeting, I don't take my phones with me. That's my personal, I mean, that's what I do personally. I don't take my phones with me, and I let everybody know. Because if you're taking a phone call in a meeting, what you are saying is that your time is more precious than other people's time. You have more important things to do. It's just really disrespectful to the other attendees. And then check that your message is received correctly. Let the listener feedback what they heard and understood. And then let me talk a little bit about the use of universal language. So what I've put here, I've said jargon, short forms, mnemonics. A mnemonic is simply a word that you use to remember things. So when we talk about SMART goals, and we say SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, that's a mnemonic, okay? As much as possible, don't use jargon and don't use short forms unless, so the only time you can use jargon or short forms is when you are very sure that every single person you are communicating with, that's universal language for them. So for example, when IT people are speaking, they have, an IT person will tell a fellow IT person something. It will tell you server CTW, whatever is down. And the second IT person will understand it because it's universal language to them. An engineer will communicate with another engineer with universal language like that. But when you're talking to a wide audience, you want to avoid the use of jargon and short forms. Even the ones that we think are really common can sometimes have a different meaning for somebody else. So I was talking to somebody recently, and we were talking about short forms and so on. And you have people who write BTW. And for some people, it means by the way, but some other people look at it and think it's between. So always be sure that if you're using jargon or short forms or mnemonics, your receiver, it's universal language for you and the receiver. Otherwise, there'll be a communication breakdown. All right. So let's now talk about tips. And I'm going to try and run through all of this really quickly. Tips on running a successful virtual meeting. Yeah. So tips for running a successful virtual meeting. Choose the right technology. The best platform for a quick check-in can differ from the right one for brainstorming or decision sessions. So the truth is that if you have a team of say about 5 people and you want to do a brainstorming session, I actually wouldn't recommend you to do it on maybe an instant messaging app like WhatsApp. It's always better to jump on a video conferencing call and it looks as if you are all on a round table discussing. It's always better to do. But if you want to check in, a quick check-in, you can just send a WhatsApp chat. It doesn't even need to be a call, although you can place a call as well. But choose the right technology. So think, who am I sending this to? And what is the purpose of, do I need a robust conversation around this? Or is it just send a quick message, a quick question, a quick filler? All right. Spend time preparing. Things you should think about when you are preparing. Who should attend? What's your target audience? We talk about target audience a lot. What exactly do you need to discuss? So you can imagine the amount of preparation that I did just to come and give this presentation today. I asked myself, who will be attending? What do I need to discuss? And this topic is so wide that you can imagine I had to keep condensing what I had so that I will give you what will really, really, really be valuable for you. And then the time factor, a length of 10 to 15 minute segments to keep everyone engaged. So you see how I keep asking, okay, tell me in the chat if you are following, and all of that, and trying to see engagement. Obviously, I'm almost done with the presentation. And so at the end, I will also be taking questions. So that's another way to keep you engaged and focused and to understand if you have understood what I have passed on today, the message I have passed on as the sender. Okay, all right. And then I talked about time zones for everybody. So you can imagine in trying to fix this webinar, If you look at the webinar flyer, you would see that we had times, we had to define the times for West Africa, where I am, define the time for British Standard Time, for Eastern Standard Time, and for Eastern African Time, and that's because we were trying to take into consideration that people are in different time zones. And then be conscious of your audience so that the meeting adds value to everybody. All right. Set attendance rules. So you heard Anya at the beginning. She says, oh, mute your microphones, get something to drink, take notes, listen, don't multitask, and all of that. You want to do that. And then we told you we'll be taking questions at the end. So those are just different ways to set your attendance rules. So you can do anything you want. Usually when I'm doing training sessions, I tell people, especially if it's the ones that are really highly interactive, one of the rules I always set is please have fun. I'm here to have fun. I mean, learning should be fun. So let's have fun, And then early login. It's rude to go late to any meeting, whether it's a physical meeting or a virtual meeting. So try to log into meetings like 5 minutes early so that you can connect and you can check your equipment, check that your audio is working, check that your video is working. And this is whether you are the participant or try to attend early. In fact, there's some webinars that if you go on, they've pegged the attendance to 100. So if you want to just come in at any old time that you like, you find out that you won't even be able to get it in. And if it's a webinar that is really, really important to you, that means you've missed out on all that information. Okay, ask attendees to mute their lines until they are ready to speak, because like I said, there's always a lot of background noise. So if you're not speaking, the proper thing to do is to mute your mic and then unmute it when you have something to say. Usually before you even say something, you raise your hand. You can use to raise your hand on apps like Zoom, have a raise hand function. I know Webinar Jam has a raise hand function as well. So you can use that and then unmute your mic and speak. And when you are done, mute your mic back again. Pay attention to your surroundings. Like I said, you can imagine if there are people, you can imagine if I'm doing this webinar and then my children are jumping behind me and dancing behind me. It'd be so distracting to you. So pay attention to your surroundings. And then what I mean by cleaning up your windows is, I don't mean them like the windows of your house. I mean your desktop, because sometimes you want to share your screen, and then because you had something in the background that you actually don't want anybody else to see, that shows up first of all, and then people are reading your WhatsApp chats with your spouse or something that you don't want other people to see. It could become really embarrassing for you. So always pay attention to your surroundings and turn on your video. So like I said, with body language, it's always better if it's full, but even if it's just the face, it builds more connection. Remember, communication is always about building a relationship, and it builds, and the fastest way to build a relationship is if you connect with somebody. So it fosters connection if your video is on. And I know that my fellow introverts will say they don't want to show their face. Listen, the virtual is coming your way whether you like it or not. The earlier you get used to it, better. And the truth is this, even as an introvert, you go to work and you see people face to face, you work with them. So you just translate that into the virtual communication. You are not going to be online 24/7. So for the period where you're going to be online, show your face. Just turn your video on so that it will help with your body language and your focus. All right. Yeah. Get everyone involved and contributing by pausing at regular intervals to allow attendees input. And then, okay, I've talked about your active listening skills. Put your entire focus on the person who is speaking, listen to them. That's active listening. In fact, the way I was taught active listening is that you look into the person's eyes. And as an African, that's not the way I was raised. You don't look like, especially if the person is much older than you, you don't look into their eyes when they're talking to you. But when I started to get my training, my professional training and all that, he said, you need to look into the person's eyes, because that's the only way you show that you are sincere in what you are saying. All right. So strengthen your active listening skill. Demonstrate that you've paid attention by summarizing what the person is saying or by asking a relevant question. So you can imagine we're doing effective virtual communication now. And then I said at the end that you can ask questions. And then somebody comes and asks me a question about, I don't know, just asks me an abstract question that has nothing to do with virtual communication. It just shows me that maybe the person wasn't paying attention or anything. And then seek for and give feedback or ask questions. So make sure that you communicate how you feel through your choice of words. If you're unsure about something, say that you're unsure about it. I always tell people that I'm never ashamed and never afraid to say, I don't know. Because usually the next thing I'm saying after I don't know is, but I will find out. Let me find out. Let me see if I can find out, So, I mean, nobody knows everything. So if you're not sure about anything or about something, say you are not sure and ask for clarification. And then I've talked about being a facilitator. You need to guide any discussion that you're in. All right. And so for whatever, whether it's a team meeting or anything or a Zoom meeting like this, always plan to follow up. Take advantage of any momentum and any connections that have been created in that meeting and use them to your advantage. If you're using software or using an app or whatever, you can record your sessions. I know coaches do that a lot. They record the sessions, they send out the recordings. And if you are just started, it's a good way to get feedback. It's a good way for you to look over what you've done and even see where you could have done better for yourself. And so it helps you improve. Remember, I said feedback. The feedback is about improvement. It's not about running anybody down or bringing anybody down. It's all about improvement, getting better. And if discussions and topics were raised, create virtual space links to continue such conversations. So obviously this is for in a team meeting. In a team meeting, it's not necessarily for maybe you are holding a webinar or something like that. And then summarize your event in a short but condensed report and disseminate it, which is part of what our workbook is doing for us today. And so the new and the future is a hybrid of both physical and virtual communication. See, we can't hide from it. We can't run from it. It's coming. If Space 1999 people could be communicating with wristwatches way back then, when there were even no mobile phones whatsoever to talk about. And today we're watching people who are using holographic images to communicate with themselves across planets. Know that it is coming in the future. Already, some people are taking trips to space. I know you've heard that. So you can imagine what's coming in the future. You want to be sure that you are skilled up to continue to deliver with excellence. COVID-19 is what propelled us into the virtual. It is here to stay. To be effective, it is important that you upskill yourself for excellence. Now, ask yourself, which virtual skill do I need to improve on? Thank you. I'm now going to become really, really interactive. Thank you. Oni, take it away.
Thank you so much, Frida. That was really, really good. Let me start by answering that first question you asked. I think I need to work on my tone of voice. You've just highlighted how important it is. And I think, what you said about communication, my key takeaway, how communication is like it's successful when the other person decodes it based on what I intended to send, so it's not just about passing on a message, but did they get it the way I intended for it to come across? So thank you for that insight. And I've just realized the power of even the video around being connected to the people, as you're communicating, just the fact that they can see you, they can read your language as you're speaking to them, how that's such an important thing in terms of how you deliver your message. Yeah.
I just want to quickly say something. So if you download the workbook, you will see on the very last page, there are links to videos on there that will help you to put into practice some of these things that I've said. So for instance, there's one on virtual communication by somebody called Mark Bolden. And he talks about how to set your computer up so that you are showing properly. There's another one, how to make your meetings, your virtual meetings more real. And it talks about what distance, they go as far as telling you what distance you should be from your computer, how you should look at the camera, how you should, people should be able to see you like this with your hand, see you demonstrating and all of that. Oni, why are you moving back?
Because they can't see me, sir.
Aha, you see, so people should be able to see you if you are demonstrating, because it helps with body language, So, and these are really, really short videos, that will help you. It talks about in a meeting, you can ask for clear signals, even if you don't want somebody to, even if you don't want people to talk and you want all the mics muted, you can either ask them to type in the chat box like I was doing, or if it's a yes or no question, you can ask them to give a thumbs up for a yes and give a thumbs down for a no. So there are different videos that I've put on into the workbook that will help you to practicalize all of these things. Okay.
Thank you. That's so good. Thank you so much. Very rich. And thank you for helping us to put all the links together in one place so we have one central point to get what we need. We have a question from Bola who says, do you have any tips about how to break into communication in a virtual group or in person?
Okay. That's I think she needs to give me a bit more. I'm not sure I understand the question. When you say break into communication in a virtual group, is the group existing already and you want to, I just don't understand the question, I'm sorry.
Maybe you can expand.
Can you rephrase it? So you are in a meeting and you want to break into the, you can raise your hand. So if they're seeing you, you raise your hand. If you can see me like this, I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Yeah.
You can raise your hand to show that you have something to say. Or you can, in a meeting, so it's a virtual meeting and you want to make a contribution. Yes, you can raise your hand.
Yeah, okay.
You can raise your hand and they'll call you up to make your contribution.
Okay, I think that's true. But if that doesn't help, maybe expand a bit if you want more information.
Yes, but if that doesn't help, does that answer the question for you?
Okay. All right. So I think I had a question. On the thing, your survey about introverts. No. You had a survey about how 19%, approximately 19% have said they feel lonely. So I have a question in two parts. The first one is, and I just to get your views, do you think introverts are benefiting more from this virtual style of working? Is it working more for introverts than extroverts? That's my first question. This virtual communication, because I'm trying to get a sense of personality style, and the impact on your communication style. Just your thoughts.
I wouldn't know. I actually wouldn't know unless I run a survey. But for me personally, I think it really doesn't matter. I think that where the extroverts are struggling is with being isolated, not with work. So the extrovert will come on and will communicate and will whatever. Where the extrovert is struggling is after my meeting with you, for instance, and I'm off this meeting with you, there's no physical stimulation that I need as an extrovert to help me. That's it. That's only where the extrovert will struggle for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think that it really doesn't matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. But let me talk a bit about introverts. The thing with introverts is a lot of them don't want to come on the stream and don't want to be visible. But it's a mindset that they have to get over. And they have to realize that I'm not online or in a meeting or doing this 24 hours a day. So, I mean,
just get over it.
I mean, I make a schedule for it. And
okay, so I think Bola has expanded on her question. So she means let me just start from the top, right? Tips for breaking into communication in a virtual group or in a person, in a meeting, when you want to get your points across in a group where a discussion is already taking place. What is the etiquette for joining the communication? How do you kind of put yourself into a discussion that's already ongoing?
It's already ongoing. So just so like I said, if it's in a meeting like this, for instance, and you are allowed to speak, if your camera is on, raise your hand. Even if your camera is not on, there's at the bottom of your screen, there's a place where it says raise hand. Raise hand, and the host will call you up to speak. Now, bear in mind that it is at the host's discretion. So it's the host that decides who, just like even if you are in a physical meeting and there are people who are raising up their hands, if you have several people raising up their hands to speak, the host will pick who they want to take a question from or who they want to make a contribution. And yes, you can also engage via chat. You can send your points across, because if you notice that there were a few times when I would read some of what people have put in the chat. And with this question and answer session, because we had agreed beforehand, we had said that, Onye will facilitate this aspect and would read out the questions to me in case I missed anyone. So you can also use the chat to send your points across, or you can even use the chat to say, please, I have something to say, and can I please chip in? I have something that is really valid and I believe will help and chip in. Bola, does that answer the question now?
Okay, I think we'll wait to hear from Bola. Whilst we wait, I don't think there were any other questions. Yeah, so I think I'll go back to the deck. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we do have a giveaway. If it's your first time joining us in our monthly webinar, please can you let us know? We'll really like to send you a thank you gift for joining us today. So please put your name in the chat if it's your very first time with us. We'd like your feedback also on today. There's a feedback link that will be shared on the chat. Please kindly click on the link. Let us know, give us ideas in terms of topics that you would like for us to have as part of the webinar on a month-to-month basis. Wow, our annual conference is coming really close, like tick tock kind of close. The 19th and the 20th of November, Quantum Leap, Breaking into New Frontiers is our theme for this year. If you have not registered, you have to register today. Like literally a few hours to go is the last opportunity you have to take advantage of our early bird discount. So if you sign up, it's 50%, half price. Who doesn't want half price? So please sign up for it. Take advantage. From tomorrow, it will be more than you'll be paying more or less the full price. So please sign up for it. What we have as part of the conference is really special initiative, which really is around EPR Social Enterprise Pitch Competition. And we are lucky, I'm in Kenya, so we are lucky as Kenyans for this one, where this is focused on just female entrepreneurs in Kenya. I mean, like they have cut down the competition so that we have no excuse. So if you are a female entrepreneur in Kenya with an innovative business idea or startup with less than $10,000 in funding, you have an opportunity to pitch. So to do that, you have to make sure your pitch idea is targeted at solving a social or environmental problem. Please register for the conference and send a 3-minute video and a pitch deck, maximum 6 slides of your business or social enterprise idea. Then you stand a chance to win $2,500, and second place is $1,500, and first place is $1,000. Third place is $1,000. So please make every effort. Welcome, Sandra. I see Sandra put her hand up to say it's the first time. Welcome. Thank you for joining us in our webinar. We're really pleased to have you tonight. So please, everyone, if you're a female entrepreneur, please make sure you take advantage of this. Please register for the conference. You do not want to miss this. And wow, I'm really excited about this one. Inspiring Conversations next week, Saturday, the 25th of September, we'll have our very own Kemi Akindu-Ture, who has launched her own book, and we'll be doing a deep dive into her book. The title of our talk is The Journey to Significance, based on her book, which is titled Success to Significance: How to Identify, Plan, and Execute Your Kingdom Assignment. If you are sensitive in the spirit, you know that this is a booking season, because we are in a season where we've been downloading about our assignments, and we are taking quantum leaps to that. We're driving into new frontiers. So you need to get this book. You need to read it. We will be doing a deep dive into the book next week Saturday. And for me, I mean, I'm really excited in 2 fronts. First, I want to know, how Kemi was able to push this book, birth it out with everything else she has on her table, and also tap into what she has, the message she has in this book around, identifying and executing your kingdom assignment. Please don't miss this. This time next month, we will be having our October webinar. And again, you don't want to miss this one, because it's a prelude to our conference. We'll be interviewing 2 people. The convener for the conference, Pastor Nike, as well as the project lead for the conference, Hilda, where we want to get, the people who work behind the scenes for this thing. We want to understand the vision. When they're saying quantum leap, when they're saying new frontiers, they have to unpack it for us. So please, you don't want to miss this. This is, you're getting the inner scoop before the masses get it. So do not miss this at all. And yes, we do have our EPR business directory. Please sign up for it if you have a business and you'd like people to get to know more about your business. Yes, and please keep in touch with us, engage with EPR. We pray every week. We make declarations, command the week every Monday, where we declare prophetically into the week what we want the week to be. This week, on Monday, our theme is I am righteous. September 20th, I am righteous. We'll be declaring midnight Eastern Standard Time. So that's Sunday midnight and 5 a.m. British Standard Time, West African Time, and 7 a.m. on Monday for East Africa. We've been praying. We pray every Saturday. We stand in the gap for the nations. We stand in the gap for the persecuted church. Our theme this month has been the force of wisdom. Please join us 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. British Standard Time, and 12. Yeah, that's 11 12 p.m. West Africa time and 2 p.m. East Africa time. You do have an opportunity to give. We have several social impact initiatives we're driving as part of EPR. One is Keep Foundation, as part of Keep Foundation. We're able to provide insulin for children who struggle with diabetes, and also able to provide INCU blankets to the value of $150 for babies in NICU. You can give http://bit.ly/BRRgive and EPR PayPal eprglobal.uk@gmail.com. Thank you, Frida. This has been really good. Thank you for the time you took to prepare the slides. Thank you for the insights. Thank you so much for making the effort. I learned a lot. Communication. I need to expand this even to marriage. What I'm saying is what you are hearing. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. And thank you to everyone, especially Sandra, who was visiting us for the first time. We're really pleased that you made it. And to everyone who made the time, thank you so much. Please stay in touch with us. Follow us, Esther Preparation Room, on Instagram, on YouTube, EPR Global, on Twitter. Have a good night, everyone.